Welcome back to Veteran Art Studio, where today we're going to be covering portrait drawing basics, a few simple techniques that you can use as cheat sheets, and we're going to be wrapping everything up with a quick demonstration on tying all those different principles together. To start out drawing portraits, one must get used to having a general idea where facial features go and proportions. While you don't have to do this all right now as you watch, I just wanted to show you that there is a step-by-step process to drawing portraits to demystify it and to make it a lot more accessible for practice. In the description of this video, you'll find the link for the cheat sheet that you see here, in addition to other resources that you might find helpful. Now bear in mind this is a general guide and faces are unique and vary in feature size, width, and depth, which is what makes portrait drawing seem so intimidating to begin with, but hopefully this guide will get you going and give you the means to get started practicing. To begin drawing your basic proportions, we begin by drawing what looks like an upside down egg, or the egg with the pointed side down to represent the chin and the broader side to represent where your forehead is going to go, and scalp and hair if applicable. Now the broader side or the top, you want to possibly do a circle first and then draw it down, or if you do feel comfortable drawing this upside down egg, you're more than welcome to do so. Next, you want to draw a horizontal and vertical line that intersects right dead center. So this main line right here is pretty much where you're going to be planting your eyes, as well as the top tip of the ears. Then between the horizontal line and on the very bottom, you want to go ahead and draw pretty much where your nose is going to go. Now you can also bring this down a little bit farther, where you're going to be drawing the opening of the mouth, which is going to go right here, which is about a third of the way down from the nose line. Now next, moving on to the eyes. And eyes are a big reference point and can seem quite intimidating when you're getting started out, because it's sometimes the first thing that you do notice when seeing a face. However, you might want to use this dividing by 5 eyes rule if you want, but generally I like to go off of using the width of the eye and making sure that is the distance that you're using between 2 eyes, or where the corners start, or tear ducts. So moving on to we'll go with the eyebrows too. With the eyebrows, you can actually measure this when you get further down here, where you actually should start, but I like to just do a quick curve just to kind of give myself a general idea of where I'm going. But going on to where you're going to put your nose, you can pretty much start with just putting a little circle above that nose line and just kind of doing a wavy M line going across here. And don't get too wrapped up in shading or details or anything like that just yet. You can go ahead and put your irises and pupils if you want, but I wouldn't get too worked up about it right now. You can just put circles for keeping them in place and to reminding you to get back to it later, but you don't have to do that just yet. Moving on to proportions for eyebrows, typically I like to line up the nose and the outer corner of the eye to be where the eyebrow should stop. Now as far as the middle, you can pretty much pull the inside of the eyebrow a little farther past where the tear ducts are at. It just depends on face to face, but if you're not using a reference point, this is a good general guide or general rule to use. Now moving on to the mouth, you can actually use, if you went ahead and drew your irises and pupils, to use the center of the eye to figure out where you want to put the corner of your mouth. Now it depends on, of course, every face is different, but you can just use that as your general guide, so you can pretty much plan on drawing your lips and how you want to actually do your shading later, and adjust it accordingly. So if you're not entirely sure, you can go ahead and just leave really light lines, and you can always go back, erase, and adjust accordingly. Now moving on to where you're going to be plotting your neckline and drawing out is typically using the outer corner of the eye. As we talked about, eyes are a huge reference point for the rest of the face, and you can pretty much measure everything else up against it. So you want to use the corner of the eye to draw down and start your line for the neck and shoulder. And moving on to other parts, when you're drawing your hairline, that also varies. Sometimes your hairline is going to be higher, it might be up here, it might be down here with a shorter hairline, but you can pretty much pull this as you see fit. So if you want to go ahead and use this line, which is about your last fourth of the shape, you can go ahead and use that. or just kind of like, draw a little bit around it and give yourself some wiggle room. And last, this is where you're going to be planning out your hair. You don't need to do this, and you can just leave it pretty much till very last, but I tend to like to make sure that the top of the hair ends right where we started the egg shape in the beginning. So I hope that makes sense. Now, as a general rule for ears, of course, I think I might have skipped over this, but as a general rule for ears, you want to go ahead and have the nose line and the eye line to pretty much be the start and stop of the ears. Now, to get better at this process, I would recommend anyone looking to get better at portraits use one photo or even themselves as reference. You can try using these guidelines or measure distances on faces using measurements of the eyes and the distances between the features. All faces are so unique, so you'll find a lot of variation in sketching anyone. If you'd like to challenge yourself, use one point of reference to sketch every day for 1 month. So it could be a picture of yourself, a picture of somebody that you know, or somebody well-known and in the public eye. And you'll see the differences day by day or over time, depending on how you want to progress and get better. And you'll notice that you develop somewhat of an instinct afterwards, and the process will feel a lot less intimidating. So with that said, let's see all these basic principles in action. Now for me, using these principles is not the final word, because all faces and proportions vary. So if you're looking to draw or paint someone you know, yourself, or a celebrity, for example, pay attention to the length of the eyes and the distance between them, where the corners of the mouth start, and so on. In short, the eyes really are the main point of reference in portrait drawing and measuring distance in proportion and all other features. Additionally, when it comes to shading, don't worry about it until you get a general idea of where all the facial features are. If you'd like a quick tutorial on that, check out the pencil and eraser shading video on the Veteran Art Studio playlist. Now in this next segment, I'm going to be taking all these different principles that we just discussed, from facial proportions, where to plot out the different features, and shading combined.
I was all alone.
that about wraps up today's tutorial on portrait drawing basics, but be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time here in the studio.